So the hands require a couple of different techniques. One is to have smaller balls with smaller diameters. This is a 1 inch. This is almost 2 inch diameter. Gosh, I forget the name of these things. They were called knot outs. They came out about 8 years ago. They made a bunch of these tools. They were so expensive, I couldn't believe it. And then an engineer I worked with told me that, oh, Arlene, they cost like 50 cents for them to make, but you're paying $50. Anyway, these work kind of well. I like them. So I still have this 7 or 8 years later, but they don't get some of the detail, and particularly in the hands. So one thing we can start with is just warming those hands up a little bit, just having a nice sticky yoga mat. You can press and slow twist and turn that hand. You're going to feel tissue moving under the pressure, but also up the arm. You can also turn the hand pretty comfortably, palm up, and mobilize the back of the hand. This is also, by the way, getting towards the range of motion. Now, not a lot of pressure here. Many of us, depending on our age and occupations and history, can have pretty stiff, cranky hands. So nothing, I mean, I've been doing this for many years, so I have a good amount of range of motion available to me, but it took time to get there. I didn't always have it. So I always tell everybody, don't force your fascia. It'll hit you back. It's like it'll come back like a boomerang or like an ornery child who's just going to have a tantrum. So you're just basically, the wrist, the elbow, the shoulder are all moving. The pressure's in the hand. And this is a nice warm up for the hand. So if you have arthritic hands or if you have stiff hands, working with the other hand will create pain in the hand that's working it. So start out with the mat first. I'm going to show these to you. The hand has like 33 joints in it. So that means we're meant to get all this articulation in different ranges of motion. So we can do things like that. However, if we don't use it a lot, it creates stability in not using it. So they get stiff and inflamed. So I'm going to take these little balls and I'm going to press them in. Works a little bit better off the mat or better on the mat. It depends because the mat will dampen the pressure somehow. I don't understand the physics of it yet. So particularly the thumb joint is where people get very, very tight often. There's a cervical nerve that comes out of the cervical spine, the neck, and terminates right there at the thumb joint. And oftentimes there's a correlation between what's hurting here and what hurts here. So I'm slowly applying pressure into those joints. If you want to control the ball more, get a little more tack on the mat will work a little better. So I'm going to work across the whole bottom of this palm and up along all these joints. I'm going to press and twist, nice and slow. This will increase blood flow and fluid transmissions in the hand. And you can find whichever little bitty ball you like. You could do two at the same time if you have to. So you'll find hot spots. You'll find spots that feel particularly stiff or yikes, tender. So you can kind of wake them up and do a little bit of this. So if you're going up and down here, you're going along the long metacarpals that are in the hand here. Now, if you do have hands that are not too arthritic, what I like to do at red lights, if I happen to be driving a lot, is while I'm waiting, I can rotate, just squeeze gently, mobilize the little muscles and myofascial tissue that's in those fingers. So I'm just squeezing and twisting. You can also gently bend the fingers back. Forward, we live kind of too forward, but you can check out your range of motion. Remember, do not force this. You can also try to do what we did in belly dance, which is My left hand is pretty slow and clunky. My right hand is a little more fluid because I'm right-handed, and I would do this 10 times to 1 over here. You can also, at the red light, by the way, squeeze and rotate your grasp around those bones in the arm. The arms can get way too stiff, and it causes a lot of problems, a lot of restrictions and fluid transmission throughout the arm and the wrist and so forth. Okay, so that's some body flossing for the upper extremity tonight. So take a moment, grab any of the tools that you might not have ready. You can use an oeuvre or a rolled up blanket. You know, if you have two lightweight things, okay, technically hypermobile people really shouldn't use weights because their major joints can stretch too much. But you could pick up a very light something, two of them preferably, because it just gives the brain a new thing to pay attention to. So when we move our arms, as we always do throughout our day, our brain's really familiar with just the weight of our arm and hand moving throughout the day. But if you suddenly add just a little something new or different, the brain wakes up a little bit more. It makes it a little bit better, a little easier to actually train new activity. Yoga strap or belt, tie, scarf, rolled up, something like that. So first we can just sit here. So if you can't sit up straight on your sits bones, you can elevate yourself on something. I'm going to just sit on this roller for now. I wouldn't advise sitting on a roller, actually. It's too unstable. But that's all I could grab. But you can grab your yoga brick or a couple of cookbooks. Actually, this is not comfortable. I'm going to just get off of it. We can pretend I have a yoga brick under there. Okay. So one of the things that you can do, so just find a way that you can sit up with a long spine. So most of us live with forward shoulders these days. I can honestly say in 18 years of doing this particular kind of teaching and almost 30 years of Pilates, I don't think I ever saw anybody with their shoulders way back here. So we don't need to roll them forward. The muscles of rolling forward are already overworked. What we're going to do is gently roll them backwards. You can go up and then down, up, back, down, up, back, down, slowly. I'm an old girl. I'm 67 now, which I can't believe. So my left shoulder is making lots of noise. The waitress and baby holding shoulder. Then you're going to try to just roll one shoulder. Again, only backwards. Other shoulder. Maybe 5 times slow. I'm going to lie on the full rolled up blanket. So the rolled up blanket has a very specific purpose. It has a purpose that came out of the many, many years in clients I've worked who are hypermobile. Something that's slightly unstable. So a roller is too unstable, and my experience of it is that it engages too much of the superficial musculature. Hypermobile people suffer from a lack of proprioception in general, and particularly deep in the body, in my experience. So if I introduce, I have a bunch of samples of other things here that I use when I'm doing in-person work. These sticky balance beams are great. I used to have 12 of these things when I had a studio that was open. They add a new feeling and just a tiny bit of slip, hardly any, but some. And I have found that hypermobile people on sticky or elevated or slightly unstable surfaces feel more inside their body when I use them on that. And actually, other people will too. You don't have to be hypermobile to do this work. We're going to work with the yoga strap. And in the beginning, I'm going to say parallel arms are when your arms are coming straight out of the shoulders. They're not above the shoulder line, coming straight out. And then there's hug me. And then there's whoa, don't come any further. So there's going to be parallel, a little wide, and then a lot wide, but not all the way back to the shoulders. And we're going to hold the strap that I've got here in those 3 positions while we move our arms together. So getting onto your slightly unstable blanket or oeuvre or balance beam if you have it. Don't forget if you need a headrest to put a headrest there. Knees are folded, feet are on your mat. Take a few breaths and just let all the energy out. Sink deeply into your floor. And we're going to take our strap. We're going to hold our arms in parallel. And okay, so wrists can either be flexed, bent forward, straight, or bent backwards into extension. We're going to start with straight wrists for right now. So the arms are coming straight out of the armpit. They're not above the shoulder line. And with straight elbows, now lots of us in hypermobile world can't keep our elbows straight. Keep them as straight as you can. And both arms are going to move out of the socket, so you create space in the joint here. You're going to come out of socket toward the ceiling. The arms are in parallel, and then straight arm, elbows, straight elbows. The arms come back into socket. So on the back, if you have a folded up towel or blanket, you can feel your scapula kind of wrapping around the blanket. That's your neutral position. So we're going to come out of socket, feel your scapula move away from the folded blanket behind you. Straight elbows, bring those arms down. Now the idea behind this is you could wobble quite a bit while you're doing almost nothing on here. The deep intrinsic muscles are to a large degree responsible for a lot of our stability, and the slightly unstable surface are going to wake those up. If you happen to have a knee ball, that will help you engage the midline musculature. Sorry, I forgot that in the beginning. So if you can put that right just, above your knees a little bit, squeeze it. Come back to your parallel arm position. So straight arms move toward the ceiling. Come out of socket, straight arms come back, feel your scapula hug behind you. Now I'm starting to wobble here now, so I wasn't paying attention to my internal organization. And that would be the abdominals deeply contracting. And just seeing your body as a still item on a little floaty surface here. We're going to go out of socket, straight elbows, and in 3 more times. Out of socket, straight elbows, in socket. Out of socket, in socket. Out of socket, in socket. And feel that, yeah. Now we're going to go to that little bit wider position. We're going to do the same thing. It'll feel a little bit different. Out of socket. Just make sure your jaw and your neck are not tensing unnecessarily. You don't even need the top of your shoulders to work in this instance. That's why we're staying below the shoulder line. Out of socket and in socket. Out and in. You're in that second position, wide. Out of socket, straight elbows. In socket. Scapula hug behind you. Last time, out of socket and in socket. Now we're going to move those arms to that wide position, and we're going to do the same thing. It's going to feel different. I'm feeling it more around my neck. In socket, out of socket, straight elbows, and back in socket. Out. So if you feel your hips wobbling, you're going to engage your abdominals, squeeze that ball, and kegel your pelvic floor. Out of socket one more time and in socket. So that's some shoulder differentiation work. If you have 2 of the same thing, whether it's a lightweight book, a ball, it could be a DVD, if you have any of those laying around. I happen to have at least 1,000 balls in this room. And because I have mostly body flossing tools laying around, there's books too, way over there. I'm going to grab these 2 peanuts. Because what we're going to do now is we're going to get back in that same position. Ball between the knees. Let yourself sink into the floor. And then we're going to hold whatever little thing you've got there in each hand, the same weight. It could be a soup can, like a little tomato paste can. Practice one out of socket and one in socket with the new tool in our hand. Out. I would keep your eyes open for this for now. One more time out of socket, one more time in socket. So your left arm is going to stay right where it is, and very slowly you're going to be shocked at what you feel as you let the right straight arm simply float very slowly like a feather to the side until you can't lower it without falling off your blanket. I'm a little weak this year, given my illness. And then slowly come back up. Notice what's happening in your abdominals and your feet and your chest. Notice how much is working. I mean, these are barely like a quarter of a pound, if that. Now, the right arm is going to stay still. And the left arm is going to slowly float. Oh, this is so much harder for me on my less dominant side. Whoa, I'm really having to pay attention to my belly and my deep abdominals so I don't fall off the blanket. Lower it, it's about 4 inches above the floor, and slowly bring it back up to its starting position. Gauge your abdominals, squeeze that ball between your thighs, feet grab the floor, kegel up, right arm's going to slowly fall. And then slowly come back up. This is a good lesson in showing you how the fascial system works body-wide to create balance. Slowly, the left arm is now going to drift out, straight elbow. Notice from the bottom of your left foot all the way up through your groin, your abdominals, your chest is all working to create stability, just so your arm with a teeny tiny little weight can move slowly away from your body. Really fun. So that's tonight's class. It's an introduction into upper extremity body flossing and shoulder differentiation without a machine available. Okay, I will see you next time. Thanks for coming.